We'll get this meeting started. Price County Executive Committee, meeting called to order and roll call.
Good morning. Alan Barkstrom,
Here.
Doug Erickson,
Here.
Brian Ernst,
Here.
Jeff Hallstrand,
Here.
Larry Palachuk.
Very good. Public comment and communications. Any of the committee members have any communications? It doesn't look like there's anybody here in the audience or the gallery for public comment. Anybody online? *6 to unmute. Hearing none. She shook. You weren't watching. She said no. She shook her head.
I have a whole list.
You get 3 minutes.
Per item.
Okay, moving along. Meeting minutes from March 13th, 2025. Looking for a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
Motion by Barkstrom, second by Hallstrand. Any discussion? All those in favor of minute approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Move on. Treasurer's report. Renee?
Yeah, so I would share that the information in your packet, we had 11 parcels on the in-rem process, or actually 12, we were down to 11. So one got crossed off since we put the packet together. And several others have been making payments and we've been having conversations. So I think it's in a good spot, hopefully. So May 15th is the last day of redemption. So the phone's been ringing and we've been doing some good conversations. Last month, I had shared that I think we sent out 1,255 delinquent parcels for in the March delinquency, and we are down to 894. So there've been a lot of good conversations lately and people calling. So updating addresses and getting contact information set. Anybody have any questions on the financial report or revenues disbursements that were in your packet?
So one of the issues is that your address database isn't up to stuff and.
A lot of them are, they're paid with escrow checks. So people don't think to update their address. Their property tax bills come back as undeliverable because they're paid by escrow. They don't even think about it.
Okay.
Is the majority of them. And some people just don't keep us updated. They think the post office is going to do that for them. The other thing I would say is when we have to look at replacing Novus, I think we brushed on that subject last month. May 14th is our district meeting for the treasurers and it is on the agenda. And so I know two of the other counties that use Novus are already looking at replacing and having conversations. So we're going to get into that conversation with those groups in a month.
So is this, refresh my memory, is this something that was accounted for in the budget or is this, or didn't we know about it when we put the budget together?
No,
No.
we weren't aware of it when the budget came part. So we were told that we have between 2025 and 2029 before they're going to end of life. So we're working it into next year's budget, but we want all five, is it 5 counties?
There is
Five
5.
5 counties to be on the same page because we believe if we all do it at the same time, when they do one database, you know, it's a lot cheaper to
Sure.
to work together. So
Okay.
hopefully we'll be able to work it into the next budget. That's the goal.
And how much were you thinking that was gonna end up?
We don't have any price numbers at all yet.
Yeah.
I know there was a demo. I was at the conference in Madison during that demo, so I haven't had the opportunity to review that webinar. I think it was 3 hours, so
Yeah,
I'm gonna
and
get to it.
it's we pay a monthly or a monthly, but a yearly fee right now for Novus. So obviously that goes away. So that'll should cover most of the yearly fee for this new product, whatever we might choose. It's just going to be that implementation cost. And like I said, the best we can do is do it all together, right? If you each try to do it, then they have to get their team together to do the database. It's better just to do it all at once, but that could be anywhere between 50 and 300,000. you never know what they're gonna charge. Watch it be 350,000.
I'll
Yeah.
hold you to that. Okay.
Yeah,
That was
so-
just, yeah,
Yeah, software is not cheap.
not cheap.
Yeah.
And the maintenance fees to keep it up is not, I mean, we've seen that with Microsoft with the licenses. And what do? I mean, you have it installed on all your PCs. When they say, we're gonna give you a 50% increase this year. What do?
Yeah, there's no alternative.
There's no alternative. You have to pay it. They really have you at hostage.
I noticed those Microsoft 365 in the vouchers. There was all kinds of them and they were all different. Why are they different?
So some individuals, yeah, Gary can.
So, for example, like highway department, you have your office personnel that's going to have everything within that suite. So you're going to have the Outlook and your Excel and your Word and all that. But then you have your highway crew, they're only going to get emails. So they're not going to have the same
But they
cost.
still pay a station fee.
Yes, they're paying a fee for that, but so there's multiple fees just depending on what packages each department
So-
have.
The crews, and they have a 365 account.
Yep.
Is it on their phone or do they? have
On their
a-
phone.
Huh?
It's like owning the email address. So once you pay for the email address, you can put it on a phone, a tablet, computer, anything like that. So we pay for the license for that email, that domain, the individual's domain. But like I'll have a different package than what a highway crew
That's why
would
the
have.
difference.
Yep.
And-
Yep.
Anything else, Ray?
Well, that's all I had for today.
Do you
Mark?
want to talk about the last thing, collecting of taxes for other municipalities and how we've talked about kind of moving forward with that and how that's going to look?
Yeah.
Not that we have exactly what it's going to look like, but just so we can get it on record that.
Yes, thank you. We were talking about looking for a 3-year commitment from the municipalities that request that we collect their taxes. So this year, we had 7, and that's the most so far that we've collected. And looking for a 3-year commitment so we know for staffing, for if we have enough for collection, and what that's going to look like. So I was going to talk about it at the or the County Towns Association next week and bring it up to the Towns Association to kind of get it on their radars, and looking at sending something out shortly after that meeting, kind of looking for a commitment from those folks that we're already doing for the 7 municipalities if they want to move forward.
Is there any pushback? I mean, to me, they want the county to do it because they don't have the staff or they don't want to do it.
Yep.
So is there any pushback to 3 years commitment? And
I
if so,
haven't
why?
brought it up to anyone
Oh,
yet.
It's
but-
not necessarily the 3-year commitment that we're worried about. Is we know it takes more time on our end, so there's more
Yes.
cost
Right.
to it. It's obviously saving the municipalities time and money because of staffing turnover. We see a lot of citizens are really happy to be able to pay us directly, either because we're open more often, or just it's for some reason sending
What
it
do
to-
we charge the municipalities?
per
Well,
parcel right now.
Per parcel right now is $1.35. We are looking to increase that.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is we want to be careful, and just like the Microsoft Office stuff, right? We want to make sure we're charging enough so that we're covering our costs, because other municipalities we shouldn't be subsidizing the tax collection for Prentice or whoever. So we want to make sure we're charging enough, but we prefer to do it because in the end when we do the paperwork and do all the stuff that beyond just
Settlements.
collecting the settlement part, it is a lot more efficient and clean if we're taking care of it. So it's that happy balance of like makes our life easier, but it also makes way more work for us. So we don't want to overcharge and lose people that are doing it, but we also want to entice those who aren't doing it to consider it. So again, I know Renee is going to present that at the Towns Association to see what the appetite is for doing this. It's a great program. I mean, you don't have the taxpayer can pay anytime during the week. They can come in and do it. It works well. It's
Mhm.
just what are the municipalities willing to pay? Right now municipalities have a tough time keeping their their employees there, so they're paying more. Well, if they don't have to collect taxes, they could pay the same, I wouldn't say less, but the same, and still keep those employees there to do the other stuff.
And I guess it's probably not a question you're gonna be able to answer, but how many municipalities still have a clerk and a treasurer and how many have combined? Does anybody know that?
I don't know the exact number. The folks that have clerk treasurer to combined are required to have a state audit.
Right.
So some of them prefer to keep them separate for that reason. I've heard response from some of them. So I think there's less combined than we
Okay.
think, but I
Okay.
haven't actually
Yeah,
counted.
where we're seeing it, like good example of Town of Fifield. They had a long-term treasurer. That individual ended up leaving the position, I believe got sick. It was in and out, right? So then they brought in a temporary one, and then they tried to bring a full-time person. They were like, whoa, I didn't learn how to do this for the last 20 years. This is a lot of reconciling and making sure there's a lot of procedural issues when it comes to taxes, where, you pay, but you can't pay their back. Like if they missed a year, that's not what it goes on. And so it's cleaner when we have trained staff doing it. And so, yeah, Fifield, they just had turnover. I think they have a stable individual, or not stable, but an individual that's in the position looks like it's a consistent individual now, but it's just easier for a lot of these municipalities because it is changing. The software is changing. Right now, we did supply everybody with a laptop that would go away. So if you're a municipality that we collect for, we wouldn't have to supply that product. That's way easier on our IT because we're trying to manage a product that's outside of the walls. And so there's a lot of that's where that happy balance of what do you charge to make sure we have the staff and we're not subsidizing versus making the municipality happy.
Because there is overtime in the treasurer's
Right,
office during the first couple of months. So, that conversation we were having as well. People really like the ability to pay in person, and it's getting harder and harder to do that with the municipalities who also have other jobs and can't make that happen. And the post office issues have been deeply concerning because they either don't get them or we don't get their payments or it's taking a really long time. So they would really prefer just to come and pay in person. So
The paying online too, technology. I mean,
Yep.
it's a lot for a small municipality who's not there all the time or full time. It doesn't. It's hard.
it is.
Okay.
Just switch. I know they hired a new clerk treasurer, but
Yes.
did they just switch? Is that, I know they switched to the person they switched to. And that person is doing Worcester and Elk, I believe.
No, Elk's got their own.
Elk's got Lynn Neek.
Lynn Neek's doing
Oh,
Elk.
one of them out here.
No, Worcester and Spirit Harmony. Worcester
No.
and Harmony. Shirley, or not Shirley.
No, she's not. She's just Harmony. She used to do Worcester and Harmony.
Oh, okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Because the person who just picked up Worcester is doing another one. Where's
Oh.
Sioux Lake? What is
No,
that?
no. Regina.
Oh,
She's
she's
like-
part
she's like
time.
clerk.
Yeah, she's
The
part
clerk.
time clerk. Yeah,
Yes.
Regina's doing part time clerk for both. But
Yeah.
that's like Lynn Redfall was doing Flambeau and Spirit.
Kennan?
Kennan?
Kennan.
Somewhere south,
Somewhere-
right?
yes.
The south half.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and Judy Reese, she was helping Fifield when Fifield had someone in the
Mm-hmm.
meantime while she's working at Town of Lake. So they're all trying to help each other out, which is really nice.
Yes.
There's 3 municipalities that have combined positions, clerk and treasurer. So that helps.
Interesting.
There you
Well,
go.
I
I
know
thought that'd be more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just elected a new treasurer, and the one who was doing it, I 100% know her reason was collecting tax.
It's a difficult thing. It's confusing taxpayers. And the other issue, and I'm not putting this is a lot for the clerk or treasurer's office, is they're a little bit more involved in the budget process. So when people have questions about their taxes, it's a lot easier for Renee and Marina, or we're here to go, oh, here, let's talk about what apportionments are, why the taxes went up. Now, we don't know what happened to schools, but when you're at these small municipalities, they get bombarded with disgruntled individuals paying, and they don't know the answer of what the county did or why they did it. And so it is customer service that way. It's a great time to educate individuals. And we see a lot of them come in yelling and leaving laughing. So, which is good.
Okay, we'll look forward to an update at the next meeting, see how it was received, your presentation was received.
Thank you.
Anything else for Renee?
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, move on. Number 3, County Administrator, 2025 financial reports.
Yeah, before we get into the financial reports, just under general county administrator stuff, a couple updates. We had the veteran service officer position we're recruiting for it. That closed today. Yesterday, closed the applications. I believe we had between 15 and 25 applications. We
Really?
get Tony's over vet service officer. So we had several applications. We get an email every time an application comes through. So I don't know exactly, but I know it's a lot. The interviews will be on, I believe, the 22nd. Does that sound right? So because it's a department head, we did invite Brian. We also have Sarah, Reese will be part of it, myself, Jennifer, and then I think one other. So we have, according to our handbook, because it's department head, we have to have we have a hiring committee. That committee will make a recommendation to the full board. The issue with the full board is Tony's leaving like a week after the next board meeting that they would be ready for. So I'll probably work with Brian. If we do have a good candidate, we could hire them as an interim. And then they would be appointed at the full board later on. But that just so we get some more overlap. I know Tony's willing to help no matter what happens there. Parking lots, the one right here behind the courthouse, the sheriff's department has cleared out. They're in the back row with their squad cars. It's nice and close to the building. So when you guys come to meetings, you can park back here. We're working on signage with Sign Studio or one of the sign places here. To call it courthouse parking, courthouse entrance, that type of stuff. So we'll see some signs here in the next month and a half. We're also working on signs in the building. So when people come in, it'll be much better signage and get people where they need to go. The all hazard mitigation plan, a lot of you should have seen that email from Roxanne. We had the first meeting for that. The federal funding was frozen on that program, so we are stopping that. So we will not be updating our all hazard mitigation plan at this time until they determine if that's going to be federally funded going forward. And that was always a 5-year grant or, she has to update it every so many years, and it was always paid for by the federal grant, the whole region. So we do it as one region. So the whole region has stopped that plan because we don't have funding for it. ARPA reporting, Carrie had her meeting yesterday to do this final updated reporting. So that should all be up to date and ready to go. You've seen a lot of emails from WCA about they're going to audit us. They're going to be looking into it from the federal level and clawing it back, I think is the words they're using, clawing back that funding. We've hit all the marks. We've done all the things we were supposed to. There should be nothing from Price County that would be eligible for clawing back.
We allocated everything.
We've allocated all 2.8 million. The stuff that hasn't been spent would be no. Well, I mean, we did the chiller. We did I would say about $1 million is left.
900,000.
Yeah.
So at the last 2 meetings ago, when you guys signed, it was
There was 980.
Yeah, it was 908,000 that we then allocated to the list. Yeah, those projects and stuff. So,
The biggest one's the park.
the big, 650 was the park, but that money is still sitting in the bank. Yes.
Bug Tussle, we're going to have a presentation next Tuesday for an update. As soon as they're done with their update, or as soon as the board meeting's over, myself, Brian, Bobby, Northway, Bug Tussle. I can't remember. There might be one other person in there. We're all meeting to say, okay, if this is a location of or general location of the towers, Northway build us a system that would be the best for communications. We did talk to Pike Lake Fire yesterday. He happened to be here and let him know we were working on a system like this. So they're looking at their radios and what that would look like, because it won't be repeaters anymore. It'll just be direct connect because we'll have dark fiber.
County, right?
Yep.
Pike Lake.
Yeah. Five field. It'd be Five Field Fire and Rescue, but it's the Pike Lake.
Right.
So Station 2, I think they call it
Yeah.
out there. So we'll be doing a lot more with that in the next couple weeks. We've now updated well, it's not even an update. We're now allowing ACH for vendors. So if a vendor fills out paperwork, in the past, we've been all check. Everything goes through check. Then we can reconcile. We're now allowing vendors to be paid by ACH, which works really well for like your Excel Energy. And we're seeing a lot of vendors turn in the paperwork to just say, yep, if I get paid by you guys, direct deposit. It's working really well. It's a little different. It's a little learning curve for reconciling, but in the end, it's everybody gets direct paid right away. And it's working well. And then the last thing I had was the airport. We had a leak in the terminal, old terminal 2, old terminal, the blue building on the high, or as you come into the airport, we had 2 pipes bust. We turned it over to insurance. Insurance denied us because it was a vacant building for more than 60 days. So we've dried it out. We've got it to a point where no more damage could, it is what it is, the damage. So we're going to work it into next year's budget to hopefully convert that into storage. So we would gut the place and then put 2 doors on it, garage doors. They could store lawnmowers, things like that. So we'll still be utilizing the building, but we're not. It's been a semi-vacant building for several
Several years.
long time. So it doesn't make sense to restore it to office space when it's not.
We didn't
being
use it
used.
anyway, and we don't really want to be in the rental business. I
Correct.
guess that was the thought.
Yeah. Yep.
But
So if they would have covered it with insurance, we were still going to bring forward the plan to turn it into storage, instead of spending X dollars to make it back to the terminal space. We were recommending to the insurance to hopefully a cheaper option to turn it into storage. And they said, yep, if it's covered, we can definitely talk about that. But our insurance policy says if a place is vacant for more than 60 days, there's a different level of insurance we would have to have, which we didn't.
and the building itself is sound. It's a block
Yeah.
building.
Yep.
The roof is relatively new, a metal building. I actually put that on when I was there.
Yeah. So we'll be working on that through the budget next year.
I think Sharp Express was the last renter we had there.
They
Uh,
just rented parking lot space.
yeah,
No,
we-
it was one of those,
We rented the building at first for an office.
I'm trying to think.
the Northern Lights did, which was a counseling.
Yeah, that
mental
counseling
health.
outfit,
And
yep.
then we had,
But that express outfit gave us like 200 a month or something just to park their vehicles there.
yeah, we're still doing that. And then the reason we found it is whenever we do like an airport project or like American Asphalt's going to be doing Highway 13, instead of them bringing in a trailer for their meetings, they would rent that space out because it was usually projects for us. So Roger and Preston, I think it was, from American Asphalt, were going to look at the space. And when they walked in, there was 1.5 inches of water, and it would have been more if there wasn't a drain in the utility room. So that's how we found it, is we were going to rent it for the summer for the construction project.
So we can't rent it because it's mold in there.
I didn't say it's up to American Asphalt. No, we won't. It's not usable space anymore. Yeah. So they'll bring a trailer. They might park it there still. I don't know how that'll work. All right. Not financials, but the executive summary, you should have it in your packet. It's the one with the logo on it. It says March 2025. We're 25% through the year already. which is crazy. Nothing jumps out. Again, jail, the biggest thing with them is housing out of county. We're starting to see more and more of that. Trying to think if, do you remember? Can't think of it. Nothing that jumps out that you should be paying attention to. Health and Human Services, and is the next page, page 2. Again, we've had a bunch of behavioral health issues, but we haven't seen the billing for that yet. We've talked about that in Health and Human Services a couple times, or at their board meeting. But that first 3 to 6 months of the year, it's hard to tell if we're going to have a good year or bad year because there's too much time to decide if you're going to have an up or down. Other funds, highway, it's been a good spring, lots of work getting done that because we're not out plowing as much, every weekend they can do a lot of brushing, get a lot of things done there. Ramping up for construction season. I have been working with the highway. So with the Highway 13, we have to replace the sidewalk with the Highway 13 project. The city is replacing all the sidewalk from Subway down to Ross's, or just past Ross's here. They're going to do both sides of the road. They're bidding it out. We'll be assessed the cost of 5 feet width of that for the length of your property. I am working with Roger because we have the individuals and the skill set to be able to do our own. So I'm working with the city. We'll see if that's a viable option, if it saves us a couple bucks to use our crew to do our section of the sidewalk.
So what's the county responsible for?
5 feet wide by the length of the property here. So we're one city block.
Oh, so we're just talking about this.
Yes, yep.
Oh,
So we're like a business owner. Yep.
Just this.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Has nothing. Yeah, not downtown.
So sidewalk goes all the way up to the bridge, basically. Are they going to charge individuals in front of their house? And
They're stopping
I
at
mean,
Ross's.
so
They're-
the rest
they're-
of that's not gonna get replaced?
That's up. Yeah, the city at this time is not replacing from the Express Mart, that block all the way down to.
Cause we would have the whole
Harborview.
section in front of the highway shop.
Yeah, we don't have to do
Okay.
that section.
Okay.
What is it gonna look like? Because it's kind of goofy with them with that high.
Yeah,
spec.
I went to the meeting. They had a meeting at 5:30 2 weeks ago. The same design, but deeper. And what I mean by deeper is like right now it's like 8 inches from, it's like curb 8 inches and then the step up. It sounds like they're going to do curb, 14 inches or 16 inches so you can open doors without scraping it. And then
you
this-
park, you open your door and you smash into the
The
curb.
step up depending on how far your business has. They originally were going to do all these ramps and railings. That seems to be off the plan. It's a city project, so
Right.
I don't know a lot about it. Ours is real simple. It's flat. We line up with the road pretty well out front.
I got a question regarding the airport. Looks like revenue is really high. Are we selling a lot of jet fuel or come it's so high?
Taxes,
or just the taxes?
that the collecting of the taxes.
No, shouldn't go there. If it did, I have to fix it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I brought it up.
We'll look at what it might be.
I'll look at it.
Or is it a reimbursement?
Well, I
for
mean,
a
that's a lot of
project?
revenue for first 3 months.
187,000.
Yeah.
It's over 60% of the revenue.
There's no
It's
landing
great.
fee.
I thought maybe we were having more traffic than I usually see.
We'll double check that. We sold all the fuel that was sitting in the tanks. No.
What's that?
So we sold all the fuel that was sitting in the tanks.
And
That's
didn't
what
replace
that
it.
didn't make the expense. Yeah. The next page is cash. At the end of the year, we had $10 million on hand, so that's good. As you can see, though, January you collect more for taxes, so we had another 2.3 million. In February, we're about the same, so we spent some, collected some, and then all of a sudden we paid for our loans. That's the big behind, instead of 16 million, where last year in April is when we paid the loans. So we went from 16 to 12. We just paid them right away this year. So we're just at that 12. No concerns there. Price County sales tax, last year we ended with 1.4 million, which is a little bit less than 2023. Oh, that's why. The airport was the levies in there. That's how much we levy.
Yeah, levy 177,000.
So that goes quick or goes right away. But price, sales tax, this January we did $7,820 more than the previous January. But really what we're looking at is 2024 in a whole, we had 1.4 million. The prior year we had 1.41 million. So we're $13,000 less than 2023 versus 2024. We knew that was going to start happening, that we were going to start hitting that plateau. But
Why?
just people are starting to not spend. We saw a huge ramp up with like buying online and everything. And now we're seeing with politics, with everything else, like we've hit our discretionary fund spending. So people are still spending the same. They're getting less stuff. So it feels bad, but we're still collecting the same amount of tax money. If people are getting big raises still, things like that, then we'd see an increase in our sales tax. We're not seeing that.
That's probably the majority of it, but I think part of it is too, inflation's not as high, so inflation's 9%.
And people are
You're
saving
gonna
a little
collect
bit
more when they spend it, because
Yep.
pay
They've
more.
hit their discretionary fund
Now that-
spending.
it's kind of leveling off.
Any more discussion about adding another 0.5% that was
Yeah,
down at the state was talking about that pretty heavily?
Yeah, the WCA, so the counties association has not really touched that. They haven't talked about that like they did for a while, right? To do roads or to do whatever. My understanding is the League of Municipalities is really pushing it because they believe that'll help them with their road conditions and what the issues they're having there. The question is who collects it? Is it each municipality? And that's more coming from the large cities, right? It's easier for a city to do it than town of Elk, right? That would be really tough for a town of Elk, like a bed tax, same thing. So I think based on the way Wisconsin's set up, it would be through the county. The county, so then the league is saying, do we split it? How do we split it if we do collect it? So for us, if say we did another 0.5%, because we do 0.5% now, it would be approximately $1.4 million additional funding. Even if you said half of that, great, we get 700,000. The 18 municipalities get 700,000. It's not a lot, right? To get, it's not a little, but it's tough to sell to add 0.5%.
It may not be a lot as the bigger you get, but a small township, when they got that extra $30,000 or $40,000 here in the last couple of years,
Yeah,
that's a big deal for them. I mean,
yeah, the biggest thing is that when they're talking about though, they're like, where are we going to offset it? So what are they going to take away so that the taxpayer doesn't get additional taxes? So it's just shifting. It may not be as lucrative as the shared revenue where it was
But I
just, here's
think-
go, here's more.
yeah, what I think the big people who are pushing this is that sales tax gets paid by everybody, not just property owners.
Yep.
So they were hoping to collect more from the people from neighboring states and people who don't own any property or whatever that are utilizing public land. They still buy gas, groceries, and
Right, because
everything
we're
else when
seeing
they're
less
here.
and less with the gas tax. The problem is less and less gas is being purchased by the everyday user, whether it's an EV or a hybrid. Hybrids are up 36% year over year on sales, and that so for somebody who commutes on a daily basis. So my neighbor has a new Hyundai hybrid. He drives into town, he drives home. He's never using gas, right? So until they go on a trip, they're not using gas, which that's the gas tax. That's what's fixing the roads. So I know the state has implemented different tags for EVs. So it's a higher cost per tag, but then 100% of it goes into the roads. They're doing different things. Price County stumpage last year was a rough year. We ended the year at 790,000. Out of the budget, we budgeted 1.27 million. We ended up at, like I said, just under 800,000, which is about half of the prior year. Again, I know Jeff doesn't like me doing this, but if you look at for 5 years in a row, or 3 years in a row, we were above budget, or 4 out of the 5. We're above budget. And now we have 2 out of 6 that are below, so that it does average out. We have $200,000 currently on the books that we can, or $2 million on the books that's still needs to be harvested, and that's what the contract cost was. And every year they wait, there is an increase because the way you bid it is, I believe there's going to be 100 cords. I'll pay you $15 a cord. Well, every year you wait, there might be 110 cords, 120 cords. They still pay that $15. So that $2 million might actually be $2.3 million on the book, figure on growth, time, all those kind of things. We also have one of our biggest sales that just went out. You guys approved it at forestry. The minimum bids are just over 780,000, 750. Yeah, which if you get, like we've averaged about 30% above that, even 20, if you're conservative and do 15%, you should have $850,000 to $900,000 just in that sale. Plus we still have a fall sale. So I'm not jumping to any conclusions yet on, we need to adjust this number at a high rate for next year. So far, we're already, we're 107% above last year, or $237,000 above last year, March over March, which is pretty good.
Like Joel told us at committee, it was a great year for the loggers. It was a great winter. If they could get rid of their wood, if they had
Right.
contracts to get rid of it,
I
they
see
could
it
get
moving.
at it. And we had a bunch of our jobs in wetlands and whatnot that got cleaned up. So
I see the wood moving.
Yeah, it's out on the road. We're seeing it.
How long are those contracts? 3 years when you issue?
we issue extensions, and we did that at the last meeting. We just gave guys extensions.
But that first bid, is it?
Yeah, 3 years.
3
I would say
years.
on average about 90% get cut within that 3 year. The ones you don't see get cut in that 3 years, swamps. Really not delicate, but hard to get to winter ones if you don't get that freeze. So
Right, because there's, so if the job has got oak on it because of the oak wilt,
Hmm.
there's only a certain time, and if they can't get in there in the winter, that job might sit for
Yeah.
a while before they can actually cut it, so.
high cost placements, children and youth. Like I said, February or this year's been, we've had some high cost placements early on. Hopefully that slows down. But we are 3 times what we were last year at this, and in February. High cost placements, AODA. Now that one's half what we were last year. So I always look at them together. So if you combine both of them, I'm not saying we're doing good, but we're not doing bad. We're average of where our budget would be.
Was this part of this a reflection of the way we defined?
Yeah. So yeah, children and youth, we had always just put, if you were a child or youth, you went into children and youth. And then we said, wait, this is a mental health AODA type cost. So then we started classifying it as where they should be. The problem is these cases bounce back and forth. So last year, a lot of them were classified as AODA. Well, this year, more being classified as children and youth. So that's why we kind of combine
all
them.
washes out,
Yep,
but-
yep, we kind of combine them in the end. The last one is health insurance. We are in the black, so we're doing okay. Being self-funded was probably the best thing we could do over the last several years. Just working with the school, talking to them, they got, for January, they have a 26% increase. They don't have control over that. That's tough
The school
because
has just regular insurance.
yep, they have fully funded. They're fully funded. We were fully funded. We got out of it right before all these huge 20s and 26s that we're seeing across the board. Now we're still seeing them in our own numbers, but we can control them, right? So we can say, we believe that 26 that they're getting is really only 18 because they have to cover building costs. They have to cover all kinds of stuff. So we, as being self-funded, only have to go up 15 because we had a little bit of fund balance left. We had a little bit of this. We can manage it differently to save in the long run.
Have we seen the Taylor family usage going up?
Yeah, I want to say I saw them. Was it March bills that we talked about? March's bill was like 13 or 18,000 to them, which we usually put about a factor of 3 on that. So if say we spent 20,000 at Taylor, it would have cost us $60,000 at a regular large facility. So we're saving a lot on that, which has helped us do a lower rate. When I was talking to the school, they're like, "Oh, do you like the tailored thing?" I said, "Yeah, it's worked great. Our employees love it because they can go in." I was talking to one employee, they go in, their service there is about $300 that they have to get these tests. Well, before tailored, they used to go down to Aspirus, so they used a half a day. They drove down to Aspirus, got a test, and then by the time they walked out the door, it was $1,200. So yeah, they would have to pay for it the first 2-3 times till they hit their deductible, but they did it 12 times a year. So now 12 times a year, we pay for it for $300 or $400 compared to, 10 times a year, the county pays $1,200. That's where you're saving is that. And then time, production, they don't have to drive 2 hours to go get a test. But when I talk to the school, they're very interested in being part of that. It's not a consortium, it's just a partnership that we work with, but it doesn't save them anything because they're fully funded. The fully funded insurance is like, cool, you can advertise all you want. We don't know if that's going to help us or not save money. And so unless you're fully funded, it's tough to really utilize a product like that or a service. That's all I have on the financials, unless you got questions.
Any questions for the administrator? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 4, resolution. Termination of easement, Town of Worcester, tax ID number 21244, parentheses 134692, and tax ID 21213, parentheses 136184, forestry. I'll read the top whereas of the resolution. Whereas in the opinion of Price County is in the best interest of the citizens of Price County that an easement owned by Price County located in the town of Worcester, Price County, Wisconsin, and more particularly described below should be terminated. And the description is there. Therefore, it is resolved that the Price County Board of Supervisors is hereby authorized, empowered, and directed to terminate said easement upon such terms and conditions as they deem in the best interest of Price County. It is further resolved that the county clerk is hereby authorized and empowered to enter into such agreements as may be necessary to carry out the termination of said easement and to consummate such action by executing and delivering a termination of easement for and on behalf of and under the seal of the county clerk.
So there's
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's no action needed on this resolution today. It was just one that we wanted to make you aware of that we'll be having at the board meeting. Town of Worcester came to us. They have I can't remember if it's 30 acres. There was a plot of land that they have out by Solberg that they were looking to get rid of. And before it's being sold, they want to get rid of the easement that gave us access to some county land on the backside of that property. However, we have access 2 other ways through ATV trails and something that's probably better access according to Joe. But it's just one of those that now you're aware of it. If there's any issues, this also kind of has to do with the bug tussle stuff because they've approached Town of Worcester. Of that 35 acres, they're going to split off a couple of the acres, and that's potential spot for a tower. So that's another reason this easement now is right in the middle of the other part they're selling. And if you have an easement right in the middle, you can't build, right? So because you can't build on the easement, that's the property has less value without the easement being implemented or removed. So it's just a information piece.
Any questions or concerns? Okay, we'll move on to the next, number 6 resolution. Number 5. resolution, Lower Steve Creek Flowage Dam enumeration signatory designation, forestry. Authorizing resolution for participation in the Department of Natural Resources Municipal Dam Grant Program. I'm just going to read it there. Now therefore be it resolved that Price County hereby authorized the Price County Forest and Parks Administrator to submit an application to the DNR for financial aid under Chapter NR 335 Wisconsin Administrative Code. Sign grant agreement documents, take all necessary action to complete the project associated with any grant agreement, and submit reimbursement claims along with necessary supporting documentation. Be it further resolved that Price County agrees to pay a share of the eligible cost, which is equal to the total project cost minus the state share. And this came from forestry. Nick, I'm going to let you expand on why our copy has that no written on there.
Sure, yeah. So the reason this one comes forward to you guys is it's a fiscal project, right? So there's $750,000 that was put towards this project. There's two things we need to talk about. One is with this, the DNR has asked us to update so that we have a signer, a local signer. We use Joe's position, so it doesn't say Joe Gropp on here, but it's the position of the forester to be the signer on this project. The other area the DNR asked us to be aware of is they needed us to not put a limit of $750,000 on it. And why that is once we've started the project, it's one of those where you're not going to get to 600 or 750 and say, we're done, right? We are guaranteeing that we're a partner in this project moving forward. We believe with all our best engineers, everybody in place, that it should not go over the 750. That's what the DNR has put in place. That's what the
But you
engineers
don't
have
have
put.
any bids yet.
No. So like if all the bids came in and it said it was $1 million, we could stop the project. But once you accept the project, you just,
So engineering is done.
yeah, my engineering was done. Bids were going out from the last meeting. We talked about
And
it.
right after the last meeting, we were waiting on, gosh forbid, a permit from the DNR.
Clarification. We'll call it
Yeah,
clarification.
The
clarification.
engineers usually give an estimate of cost. Did they provide that?
Yep. So the estimate's at 675, 700. So we believe
So you're there.
we're under it, but the DNR will not move forward with a cap on it because we're saying we're a partner in this. We believe in this project. Move forward. We're accepting whatever.
So the
cost.
bottom line, if the bids all came in and they were 900,000, 800, because we made at the board meeting, the resolution was we weren't spending over $750,000, period.
Yeah.
We could still cancel it, but we would be on the hook then for the engineering cost.
And the closing cost.
No, the closing then. So say
Well,
we.
it goes back to the DNR closing.
Yep. So if we walked away, like say the bids came in at $1 million and we walked away, we'd be on the line for the $40,000 or $50,000 in engineering costs. But then we would be required to remove the dams, and that's a different program. So there's a dam removal grant program that's paid 100%. So we had talked about that originally. Like we can get 100% paid for, remove the dam, or we can move forward with this grant and hopefully hit
So
the project.
we're basically giving the position in forestry an open-ended blank check, but we still have the option to cancel,
Correct,
to not
yeah.
accept the project if it's too much, but we're going to pay the 40,000, whatever the engineering costs were.
Yeah, so the blank check is true, right? We've said now we're in it as a partner, but if the project came in above that, Joe and I both know that you've set a limit via resolution that it's this amount. We would then tell the
And
DNR, hold, stop.
Just to clarify, that 750,000, that's total, I mean, theoretically, that's total project costs, not our
Engineer-
share.
We have no share in this, I
No,
believe.
I mean,
it was a
I mean,
zero
that's
share.
the total cost. What's our percentage of share cost?
Zero.
Zero.
This
So
one was a
if this
zero.
grant goes through, in theory, it should cost us nothing.
Correct. Yep.
Can I
Go ahead,
interject
Mr.
to that a little
Hallstrand.
bit? I think theoretically, we would almost have a share because Joe feels that a lot of the
We do
material
work, yeah.
couldn't come right out of our pit. So if we've got the contractors know that they've got a haul from here to Express Mart, that makes a pretty big difference when you don't have to add in 25 miles each way of hauling material.
Yeah, or
So-
Joe's time, we're
Or-
not
or
getting money.
Joe's time,
So
right.
the we're not writing a check to the DNR for.
And we aren't
part of the share.
counting that as part of the $750,000 either.
So what you're saying is we're giving them, or including or
Kind.
in kind,
Mind.
Joe's time and the material itself.
I think there's
That will be their choice to bid it.
If,
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
if they so choose to
Right.
go with our
They
material.
still pay a stumpage. It's just out
Right.
of our pit rather than paying a higher
Okay.
stumpage.
Like I
rate.
say, it's hauling, well, maybe a little further from here to Express, but
It's
well,
not
you
far.
flew over it, you know, the gravel pit is right there.
Yeah, it is.
You know, so it, you know, if they factor that into a bid, hauling, you know, 10 loads an hour versus 2,
Right.
that's gonna make a big difference in the bids. Should.
Then the bids have gone out.
Yeah, the Joe's bidding it out, or the DNR is technically bidding it out. But yeah,
The DNR bids out.
the engineer, we all three put together and say, here's what it's going to be. I'm assuming we're not starting this year.
Joel thought just because of the timing and the process now this will be a 2026 project.
Right, and which we talked about when we started this, it would be 2 to 3 years before it was all complete. The other issue with the resolution is just a clarification. So there's 4 signatures on the resolution, which would show Ford and Jordan was absent, which needs to be written on there, or excused. He was excused for the meeting. But there's 4 signatures. One of the signatures, Mr. Hastings wrote no next to his name. But my understanding, we watched the video, we didn't witness a no. Doesn't matter. Past 3 to 4. There's 3 signatures. But we do want to make sure when we talk to board members, if you do vote no for something, we just fill in no. We don't want a signature, because what could happen is you could go back in our archive and just start writing no next to your name, and then it would be change that record.
And so on Mr. Hastings' behalf, he was just quiet that day. So I was always under the impression if you didn't speak up, yes or no, you were
Yes.
a yes, but technically I think is it a no? If you don't speak up, are you automatically a no?
Well, yeah, our
Or is it
biggest thing was just,
abstain?
well, we just looked at it as when people are quiet, right? You know, hey, call the question, all in favor. You hear ayes, right? You don't never know. When you sign it, that's the confirming that you were an aye. In this situation, if he was a nay, it should just been written no by itself, no signature, or clearly said because you called the question, you said anybody opposed, there was no ayes or nays after
Right.
that. Again, not a big deal. We're just so
Because we had
clarify.
enough votes.
Just
otherwise.
raising awareness
Yeah.
for procedural
It
purposes.
just looks odd because there's 4 signatures, but yet there's a written no. So you guys are voting on it today if you want.
I'll make a motion for it to be approved.
Motion by Barkstrom. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Erickson. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Resolution approved.
Forwarded to the board, right?
to the board.
I mean, the board still,
Correct.
The board still has to approve it as a whole. It's an odd one because it's a joint resolution, because forestry is recommending who, finance has to say something because it's a fiscal issue, or executive, I should say. Executive has to say something because it's a fiscal issue.
Okay, move on to item 6, resolution designating general fund money for parcel replanning. Came from forestry. Resolution designating general fund money for parcel replanning, tract number 5-25 and tract number 12-25. Whereas Price County has 92,307 acres of land entered into the Wisconsin County Forest Law, Wisconsin statute, etc. Whereas the timber management program for Price County Forest is governed by the Wisconsin DNR's Silviculture and Forest Aesthetics Handbook, which states, and you can continue reading that. Now therefore be it resolved that when the time comes to artificially regenerate the 67-acre tract number 5-25, money from the general fund not to exceed 44,220,000 will be transferred to the forestry department to cover the related expenses. And when the time comes to artificially regenerate that 123 acre tract, number 12-25, money from the general fund not to exceed $74,580 will be transferred to the forestry department to cover the related expenses. So, looking for a motion to approve. Motion by Polachek. Second by Hallstrand. Any discussion?
The only uniqueness I would point out on this one is in the past, we've always waited till it's been logged and then we come forward. Not that that's an issue. We're just saying these ones are
And
we've always replanted them. So it was just, we did it in a different timing order. So if you're used to it, in the past, it was, we logged it, then we came and got the money because it's a 2-year process, 3-year
Mhm.
process.
2-year process. yeah.
To get these back up and planted. This one, like track 1225, hasn't been sold yet.
so what we're doing in a nutshell, in my mind, is approving replanting and taking the cost, but not to exceed what we're estimated to generate from this being logged. Correct? Hopefully it should be a lot less than what we generate.
Right. Usually so like the pine plantations, they get logged 3 times. So really it's the first 2 times is where you make your money. The third one, you still make money, but that's when you replant it for the next time. They're thinned.
We talked about the history of this a little bit. And years ago, I believe it was brought up that a certain percentage of the stumpage money would get put in another separate account and be utilized for that. And at that time, the board decided it was better to just do a resolution this way and say, we're gonna move this much out of the general account because
Yeah.
Just
You could
easier,
put, like every
smoother.
time you cut log, you could put 1% aside, but
because not every job do we replant.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
not, so do you take out every job for replanting when you're cutting off a popple, it's gonna regenerate on its own, but the cost of replanting the pine is, expensive.
The project NK looks really good that they replanted, I suppose 10 years already now.
Yeah, I was
But
here
boy, it
already
really
then.
took off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way the process works, they cut it 1 year, then they spray it and they go in with a Scarfire or whatever you call that thing you drag behind the cat. I think that's what they call it. And they kind of rip up the roots and they kind of make a little bit of a rut. And then the following year they come in and they hand plant them.
They hand planted.
It's unbelievable
Really?
watching it.
That's where
They'll be lined up
expenses, yeah.
25, 30 wide and
Yeah, that's been probably the hardest part. I remember when we did this and it was 22 or 23. Getting a company to come in and plant them is really, really hard these days because of labor costs. But it is, it's hand planted. They come and Joe said it's the funniest thing. They just have this weird motion where it's like they grab from a backpack and it almost throw it in the ground and they step on it. Next one, step on it. But they have it's really cool to watch.
They don't use machines anymore.
No, not for this.
Not.
I know
not-
the foresters, you sit on it and just put one in.
yeah, but think about
pull
where they're
behind the
at.
cat.
It's all full of
It's
stumps and
stumps
ruts
and-
and.
Yeah, okay, you
So-
can't run a machine through
Yeah, it's
it.
not a clean
Right.
Field.
field.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving, sending to the full board, signify by saying aye.
I,
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next item. Number 7, amend resolution 30-24, highway project borrowing. This has already been approved. We're just changing the verbiage on the second whereas. The executive committee has reviewed the financial impact of what's being crossed out as proposed construction projects, and in its place will be added equipment improvement program and recommends financing the projects through the use of short-term debt. Like I said, this has been approved. The original resolution's been approved already. We're just amending it to change the verbiage. Looking for a motion to approve. Motion by Polachek, second by Barkstrom.
Yeah, it's just cleaning it up. This would be the one we talked about with the yellow equipment. Right now, there's 147,000. We've been saying 150. The piece of equipment they want to get is closer to the 200. They're getting additional quotes. they'll sell the current piece of equipment for about 20 to 30. So they're still short to get that equipment. So we still have to work with them on that. But this cleans it up so that that $500,000 can be used towards equipment. But we'll still have a couple more things to try to figure out with that funding.
Mr. Palchak?
In our highway department, 25 to 2030 yellow equipment program for 2025, Roger did have in there one more tractor for 100,000 and a motor grader with trade for 400,000. I looked that up in some of our old minutes. So we didn't just throw darts at the board until we hit 500,000 for a motor grader. Something to think.
Yeah.
So with that
Go ahead.
being said, I think cleaning that up in the process, rather than borrow the money before we get the quote, we wait till we get the quote before we borrow the money. You know, I know it said up to 500,000, so we just grabbed 500,000 and it created, you know, a little bit of discussions, you know, so, yeah. But maybe we should have, when we, you know, made our original resolution to
It's something to think about in the
500,000
future.
to cover both of these pieces of
Yeah,
equipment.
well, my impression, the original discussion was grader only. I mean, yeah, the tractor was on there, but we thought the grader was gonna cost a lot more than it did.
And as it turns out, it's best to buy that tractor now because it'll be 25% more next year,
Yeah,
you know, so.
and we're not actually spending any money. We're just changing the verbiage here a little bit right now. It's already been approved. So any more comments or discussion? All those in favor of amending this resolution 30-24 signify by saying aye.
I,
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next item, number 8. This is on the amended agenda. Resolution, budget amendments for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024. Be it further resolved by the Price County Board of Supervisors at their, I believe this date should be changed to the 15th because isn't this for the next upcoming meeting? For our this is to be approved at our next full board meeting, that the 2024 budget as adopted be amended to include the amendments as attached. And be it further resolved that the county clerk be instructed to publish a class 1 notice within 10 days of these amendments informing the public of these particular changes. Fiscal impact 0. You want to expand a little bit on that, Nick?
Yeah, so every year, Carrie prepares a resolution to adjust the budget from the prior year for grants, extra funding that we didn't know was going to happen based on what you guys spent, or you guys didn't spend it, but you guys approved spending. So there's a sheet, the orange, where it says this is where we're at before the amendments, and then there's all the amendments that are recommended, which are like transfer from the capital improvement, correcting a grant amount, insurance claims, grant funding, blah, blah, blah. It shows you each amount. And then it puts it into that sheet and then it changes the numbers. So if you look at, for example, right now, it looks like in the general fund, we were over budget by 1.6, almost $1.7 million. After all the budget amendments, we're only over budget by 935. So it looks at the revenues, adjusts them for what the expenses were to be more transparent of what you guys approve throughout the year or throughout the years, multiple years. So this is
Any
what-
discussion? Looking for a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Erickson, second by Polachek. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, and just so after these go through, so part of the audit, we do this also. So what it'll show is that we were over budget by 935,000 in the general fund. Of that 935, we'll have a better list at the board meeting. But if you take out the forestry, they were short on their revenues for the year. That's a big cause of being short on or using the general fund money. And then also sheriff's department, the jail and the sheriff's department was what, $600,000 of that overage. Those are the three big ones. The rest are generally health insurance. So if you look at health insurance, we would have a new employee that starts that takes the family plan that wasn't budgeted for. So it wasn't in that department's budget. And then it would be over by that amount. However, there's other departments that lose a health insurance, a $30,000. So like county treasurer, that one's down to was $15,000 under budget compared to, I'm trying to think, like Office of Corp Counsel, they took a family plan. So it was
So what we're doing is approving the
with changes.
reconciliation, I guess maybe the right
Yep,
word, of the
yep.
budget to reflect what it actually was versus what we had estimated when we
Correct. So it's
formulated it.
yeah, and in that the spreadsheet is all the adjustments. So as you can see, it was grants, transfers that you guys approved via resolution to reflect what you guys chose throughout the year.
And this is kind of procedural because the
Every
money's
year.
been spent already.
Yeah, every year we do this because otherwise, every time you guys, like for example, you guys just approved the forestry replanting. That'll be something you would see after it happens in a budget amendment. Because if we just said, oh, next year when we do the 2026 budget, Joe should get an extra $70,000. Well, it might not be spent that year. So now all of a sudden, and I'm not saying Joe would do this, but he'll look at his budget and be like, whoa, I have $70,000. I'm not doing planting. I'm going to go buy a piece of equipment or I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. So we always wait until the expense happens. We match it up with the resolution and do the budget amendment.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none. Call for a,
Oh, you need a motion?
I thought we did.
We did.
Erickson
Doug
and Polachek second. All those in favor of approving signify by saying aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, item number 9, reallocation of highway loan proceeds.
This was just a follow-up to what we already did with the resolution. I think we talked about it where the committee did come forward, or highway committee came with a recommendation to use that additional funding for a tractor and boom mower, arm mower, whatever it would be
Boom.
called, boom mower. And right now the quotes they're getting are in that 190, 195 range, which is about, with trade-in, is about 20,000 more than we would have after everything. So you guys have, with that resolution, will have allowed the 150 to be used for equipment. We just have to find the difference in the highway department, whether it's using their other equipment fund, whether it's requesting additional funding from something else. But this was the first step to getting to that tractor boom mower purchase.
Okay, that was just for discussion. Any questions or comments regarding that? Hearing none, we'll move on to courthouse boilers and exhaust system, item number 10. Mr. Hallstrand, do you want to expand on that, or I assume that came from buildings and grounds / forestry?
Well, it did, but Nick has got a better handle on exactly where our quote stands on it. It's
Okay.
That project we looked at downstairs where the outer shell of our boilers had got condensation in it and it rotted.
Sheet
So
metal?
our concern is that we were putting CO in the building, but the inner shell is not. It's just the heat that gets generated on the outside. They have an outer shell on it so that you don't rub up against it and get burned. While that condensation leaked down to the bottom and rotted the bottom of it out, and it needs to be fixed. But in the meantime, we had some pump go out.
Yeah,
and-
so that project, we're still working on the quotes for. Eventually, when we do get the quotes, we'll come to this committee and say, how do we want to fund it? Do we want to fund it? Do we want to wait till next year's budget? Is it a capital improvement? But in the meantime, the reason it got kind of backed up was we had some issues with our electrical switch panel. We have a very dated panel. One of the switches went out. They bought refurbished parts.
He's on item 11 now.
Oh,
Correct.
sure. What-
Yeah, we're
so-
kind of
Yeah,
combining the
we're
two.
kind of combining 10 and 11 here. 'cause
Yes, so
They are tied together.
as far as 10, we have nothing that moving forward yet. We're still working on it. So we
But
go-
safe, as far as the safety concern, the inner pipe, which is probably stainless
Fine.
steel,
Yep,
is in good shape. It's just the outer insulating shield that's rotted.
yeah, so, and we're looking for as many options as possible. Do we, with this project, do we just put the new piping exactly how it is today? Or do we actually pick up the machines and turn them so that when we replace them in the future, we're up to date on where the piping should go, which would be less run. So you'd have less distance to get to your chimney, which would be a better option. So we'd just be putting some expense today that we're going to have in 5 to 7 years by turning them. The big cost is we need to ventilate out a different chimney than we currently have. So right now, I believe it's 8 or 10-inch pipe, and it goes down to 2 inches smaller. So if it's 10-inch, it goes down to 8, and if it's 8, it goes down to 6. I don't remember which one it is, but that's not normal. So once you look in the chimney, we can't fit the proper size piping. So we want to redo the rubbish chute, the trash chute that we have here. So we take out everything in that chute and then use that as the chimney to go up to the penthouse or the ceiling and out the roof. So that's another part of the quote where we've talked to Hutari about. We're trying to figure out what the whole project would look like before we bring it forward to you guys.
Like most things in a old building, it looks relatively simple. We can just do this until you get into it and it's gonna become a more
It's a
costly
confined
project.
space.
Yeah.
I
But
just-
there is no safety issues. We went
No,
over.
Right.
yep, building's
There
fine.
I looked at it,
absolutely
I
is
agree.
none.
I just
making
want
that
to tour
clear.
the penthouse. I didn't know we had one.
Yeah, you got to climb on there's like a weird ladder to get on the roof, and then we call it the penthouse. It's got our air handler and our.
Okay, moving on. Yeah.
We said we want a little patio up there. It'd be nice. So going to the next item, which kind of leads into why this one got pushed back a little bit. So we have a electrical panel that's I don't know. I would say it's 2 refrigerators side by side. It's 2 big panels, and it's got these big switches on, and the switches have just aged, and so they're not connecting as they should. We had one of the switches go out. We got refurbished parts, and so what happened is switch goes out, all our hallway lights go out, but that made our boilers go out, and then also our air conditioner in our IT room. So we got it all fixed. We call them, they get the electricity back on. They had to get refurbished parts. The parts were like $3 or $4 grand plus install. So we're up and running. We believe we're in a good spot, but we know that's a project that has to be done here in the next year or two, is to replace the panel. They're estimating 100 to 150,000 to replace the whole panel. It's quite a project because they have to bring cranes in to bring the panel in, and it's interesting. But while the power went out, it created an issue with our pumps that circulate the hot water from the boilers throughout the building. We have 2 pumps. One of those burned out because they go off the 3-phase, and then it started using single phase. I don't know. Something happened. They're
Brown out.
they're 50-year-old pumps. One burned out. It is an insurance claim, so that'll be replaced. It's like 16 grand to replace this pump. We would like to add a VFD, VFB, VFC, VF something to it, which would be, it allows the motor, instead of going 100% on, 100% off, it actually ramps it up and ramps it down. But that's an additional 5,000, and then you can control it from a computer, and they can monitor it, and it tells you if it goes out. And so that's the insurance claim with that pump. The other pump that's running is still 50 years old, and that one we just got up and running like 6 months ago. So we finally had a backup, which was great that we had a backup. We are not going to replace that one today with the insurance claim because it's 30 some thousand combined, 35,000 combined. So we're going to get the insurance one up and running, and then we'll work on the other one throughout the budget.
Pumps are for the heating?
Yep, it
circulation?
circulates the water through the heating. So that's a project that's coming. But then also, well, the IT air conditioner went out. That's a used air conditioner from the normal building or sheriff's department that all of a sudden stopped working. So we had to bring in portable air conditioning to keep the IT room cool for, it was like 3 days, 4 days till we got that one patched back together. So we're getting a quote on updating that air conditioner. We do have another used one that we took out of the sheriff's department when we upgraded theirs. So we're working with our vendor to say, is it worth taking that one, putting it in, getting another 3-4 years out of it, or do we just replace and work with that? So we have backups. We're ready to go if needed, but that one switch going out really buggered up a lot of electrical devices on that switch. So
And I'm gonna assume that switch was from 1967 roughly
when we
this
built the
building was
building,
built.
yeah, yeah. They're-
So it's time, I guess.
Yeah, the other thing we are going to be working on, and hopefully there's no bad people listening. So right now, if you just go down to our boiler room, we can walk right in, and you could go switch a switch, or you could go turn our boilers on or off, or you can go. So we are going to work with the card company that does our doors and get those locked, so then we know who's going in and out, and it'll be locked going forward. But that's cheap. It's $3,500, but
And if you haven't been in that room, I would encourage you to have Nick or
yeah.
Josh take you down there and just show you what we're talking about, because it's interesting to see this stuff that's spent its life there, and you know, it's time, and or Josh.
And
nothing's
even the
cheap.
boilers, we replaced those in 2011 or 12 when I started here, and the vendor's like, yeah, you get 15 good years. After that, you're limping it forward, and hopefully you get 25. 20 would be great, but be ready. So we're at year 13, 14 already. Yeah. But it is also, so we have one of our original boilers that looks like an old steam engine, right? It's huge. It is a large boiler. It's 10 feet by 10 feet. It's big. The ones we put in 2011, 12 they look like a giant ice maker, but they're like 4 times that size, right? They're about 7-8 feet tall by 7-8 feet. The boiler, we put 2 new boilers in the normal building last week. They're smaller than a refrigerator that you'd put in like a rental space. I mean, I could put my arms around it and it heats the whole, there's 2 of them that heat. One does it by itself, but the backup, it's amazing the efficiency and the size. So you gain
And
a
the
lot
new
of-
venting goes right out of PVC
yeah,
pipe.
yeah, it's a lot easier, and that's why when we do the venting fix for these that hopefully we get 7 to 10 more years out of, we want to put it in a place that we can, when we do replace, we don't have to do a bunch of more new venting when we replace it.
Any more comments?
Like Jeff said, Josh spends money.
Yeah, poor Josh,
Just because
but,
of just because of
for
where it's
us,
at.
because we gotta explain where we're spending all this money. Okay, moving on to item 12, Price County Airport property tax procedure, personal property billing, buildings, fixtures, or improvements.
Yep,
Nick?
we're going to be working with Christina Ritz and her assistant to get that done. They're gathering the information they need, and then we'll work with the clerk's office and Register of Deeds to define each hangar and then it'll all get its own tax bill instead of us paying the tax and then trying to chase down hangar owners. It'll also give us the in-rem process. So I think as of yesterday, Jules is going to look at me. We had 1 no pay so far on their taxes and 4 that are 3 pays, 5 that are 3 pays that have until the end of April to pay. And then the rest have paid in full. So it just takes time to chase these individuals down because it's a new process too. They're not getting a personal property bill from the city. They're getting a invoice from us because we pay the property taxes now under the new system. Where if we do this BFI process, they'll get a property tax bill from the city. So we'll be out of the process, and that's why we're working on doing this.
As long as we have property tax and buildings and fixtures, have we heard anything on our expansion project out there? The T
Oh, at
hangar?
the T hangar, I haven't heard any updates.
I
on that
haven't
yet.
had any either. Other than, I guess a little bit. I think Carl said when I talked to him the other day, it's not gonna happen this year, maybe next year.
Talking about
Hopefully next year,
the
let's put it
hangar?
that way. huh?
The T
For the T
hangar.
hangers.
Yeah,
We did have
that's for 26.
Yeah.
And the other good news though with that, there,
Oh, Carl called me the other day too and said that, the FAA and the state have agreed to fund any existing crosswind runways for maintenance and, redoing, that's not the right word, but anyway, so for a while there, they weren't funding them. Ours is getting in rough shape, but now they're eligible for projects, so we can get hopefully the 95.5 funding. It only costs us 5% of the total. But nothing's gonna happen.
that's
immediately.
that's big.
That's,
'Cause otherwise
that's huge. Otherwise,
we'd be closing that. I mean,
probably close
once
that
it
runway
falls.
down because it's cost too much to rehabilitate it
Even the maintenance is not cheap. I mean, to
Did they
crack
use it?
fill and
all the time.
The crosswind.
Depends on which way the wind's blowing, but yeah. Yeah. Well, the smaller aircraft, which is typically what come in and out of this airport, need an option like that, because if the wind's a crosswind, you have a very high chance of having an accident. So that's just an update on that. Any more comments about the property tax procedure? I think it's a good thing we'll clean this up and
yeah, there is an expense.
have
to it.
leverage.
Yeah,
There's
we-
an
we
expense, but
talked
once
about
it's
that. We figure about $200, $250 a property. So upfront, there's an expense, but long term, it's worth
it
it.
simplifies everything.
Yep, yep. Gets us out of the collection business.
Okay, next up, item 13, update local legislative breakfast, brunch, lunch. I'll just make one comment. That was supposed to be April 29th. Nick and I have talked and we're going to cancel that because no legislators have confirmed that they'll be able to attend. We got it out to them too late to get on their schedule. So we're going to try again in probably July or August.
Yeah, what we'll do this time is what we heard back. So we heard back from Rob Summerfeld's office and maybe Jesse James, couple of them. And they just said, it's difficult to know what they're doing at that time. So we were early enough, but not early enough to just say, this is our date. So what we're going to do is pick Jesse and Rob and work with them more exclusively and say, what you pick a date and we'll work around it so that
You said Jeff.
Jesse
James.
James is our other representative.
State.
He's living in Thorpe. Yep, Rob Summerfeld and Jesse James are the
Two of them?
Yeah, one's the Senate, one's the Assemblyman.
That would be Quinn.
No, Jesse
Not
James.
anymore.
They read.
You got redistricted out.
Yes, yep. Yeah, so it's weird because you're right, Quinn is technically overlapping until the next election, but
What's
Our-
his
our-
fellow's name?
Jesse James, he was here at the,
Towns Association.
no,
meeting.
he was at our board meeting, didn't he come? We talked about health and human services.
Yeah.
His mental
guess
health
so,
is his
yeah.
big thing. I think he came to our board meeting in February. Yeah, he lives in Thorpe, was originally out of the Chippewa Valley area, but now lives in Thorpe so that he hits the district. But either way, so what we're going to do is work with those two and say, you guys pick a date. We'll work around it. I can't remember if it was Tom Tiffany's or Rob Johnson's office said they would send a representative. So they were a little easier to work with the sending somebody they have. But July, we're going to try to do it out at Solberg. So because they have the new boat landing, the new pavilion, and then we'll have part of the project moving. So we'll all be able to show that off.
Okay, so you've got, now Andy Phillips, a couple of weeks ago during those Monday morning
Yep.
conferences, he suggested, and you probably heard it too, that we get together and talk about topics that we want to address.
Oh.
At that meeting?
At the annual meeting, the
Well, no,
September
he was
one.
talking about these kinds of meetings. So I was led to believe that we're not the only ones doing this.
Oh, we're not. Yeah, I stole this idea. This was not, I stole this idea from several other counties that
Okay,
do this. Yep.
So they're aware of what the expectation is.
Yeah, yeah. So I stole the main idea from Sheboygan County. They do a really big one every month. They do a breakfast. But St. Croix County, there's a lot of counties that on my Monday call, they all do this to make sure they're meeting with their legislators. So our meeting, we were going to do it up at the YMCA, and we had lined up Sarah, Kayla, and Chana. They were all going to so Chana was going to do a 10-minute presentation on mental health and the cost to the county. Kayla was going to talk about how that overlaps with the children and youth and the cost. We don't have the services. And then Sarah was going to just be there as
So
Health and
basically,
Human
you're just gonna
Services.
ask for more money.
we were going to let them know our story. So Jesse James' biggest push down at Madison is mental health. He's really pushing for funding for mental health. Rob Sommerfeld, their platform right now is the court systems. So, which we're solid on talking. We have talking points for the court system right now. So we were going to lean heavy on the mental health services and costs.
Well, I would think that we'd want to talk to them, especially the federal, because they're the biggest culprits. And I would want to dig up anything that we could and blame them for doing it. For instance, Wisconsin ranks 7th among the states with the highest property tax. So we're right up there don't we want to talk about that?
Yeah, WCA does a nice presentation on that. So we're ranked 7th or very high on property tax, but we're ranked like 47th on other taxes. So whether it's your sales tax, your business taxes, your income taxes. So we do property instead of everything else. Where like if you look at a state that would be like 40th on the property tax, they have a 7 or 8% sales tax. They have taxes on permitting. They do a lot of permitting taxes. So it's where do you want to spend? That's the only misleading part about just saying, oh my gosh, we're the 7th most taxed. They do it other ways. Vehicles, we have very cheap. We pay what, $85 for a vehicle, where if you go to Minnesota, it's like $400. So that's where they're making it up. You have 2 vehicles, all of a sudden 200 versus $1,000. My
Based on vehicle
taxes
value, I think, in Minnesota.
is that what
Something like-
Minnesota does? Iowa does it different. So then all of a sudden, their taxes might be $600 less on their property, but they're paying an extra $1,000 on their car versus what we are. So WCA does an excellent data dive or forward analytics on. You just have to be careful, not just going, we have the highest property taxes because they make it up somewhere else.
I would have another topic.
Sure.
As far as of the 30 countries outperform the US in mathematics at the high school level. We're dead last, and yet we spend more money per student than all of those 30 countries, yet we're on the bottom. You want to bring up a topic like that?
Yeah, that'd be something to talk to our legislators and concerning.
But we
yeah.
want to take that and discuss it amongst ourselves and then put that forward as a resolution. That's what,
Oh,
that to me is.
that's
Andy
different.
Phillips was
Okay, yep. So we're talking 2 different things now. We do want to get together and say, this is what we want to do at our legislative luncheon. What Andy Phillips was talking about, and we all got the email that by June, a county should pass a resolution if they feel strongly about a topic that WCA should be advocating for at the state and federal level. So
I don't care who we advocated for, but I just want
Yeah.
to have it brought up.
Yep.
I mean, those are important things.
That would be
We're on the
you.
bottom of the list, and we spend more as far as education.
yeah, so yep, every year by June, we have to have resolutions to WCA for the annual meeting in September. We've done it in the past.
Well, there's a committee
Yep,
that.
you're on the.
That looks them all over and then decides which ones they want to present to the full
Yeah, so it's
WCA at the convention.
what do you want them to put on their docket?
But
to
when are
be-
we gonna talk about that? This county board?
So what we would have to do, and we've done in the past, so we always get the extension because I think it's due like June 1st, and we always have like the June 18th board meeting or do, it's always a couple days late. But at your next committee meetings, you would have to bring up a topic and create the resolution to get to the full board in order to get to the WCA.
We do that at the extension.
You could do it here. It depends on the topic. If you believe education, that might be a good one. Is UW Extension, it could come from this committee. If you want, that would be up to, I guess, you, where you think the
I
best.
guess,
committee-
yeah, we could talk about it and decide which committee it needs to
'Cause
come through.
I would have several more, and I
Sure.
don't want to blame them.
Yeah.
But you
yeah,
gotta
no,
bring it up.
I'm with you.
You know.
Sure.
And we can work with WCA too. They might have some other counties that have done it that we can get a example.
I guess another big one, I'll bring it up now. Another big one for me was this last Supreme Court election. The state of Wisconsin spent more money than any other state on that particular election. And right now, what it is that the legislature, along with the governor, is to draw those maps,
The district maps.
the district map, even like when we do it here, we do it by we sat in this room and they're by population as far as redistricting, but now it's political.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be. It should
Agree.
be, now we're going to, they've created another legislative body, and it's called the Supreme Court. But so it's gonna be directed by 4 people
Mhm.
rather than the legislature and the governor. That's not right.
I agree.
So that's another topic that I would want to bring up. I think that if they can't agree, they should sit in a room until they do agree, but sending that to the court is not an option because you've created another body of legislators.
Yeah, it's become political.
Well, then I'll expect you to bring up some kind of a meeting where we can talk about the different topics of what we want to do.
Sure. No, we can do that.
All right.
Yeah, as long as they're to our, because we're in April now, May, as long as they're to our June board meeting, then they can get to WCA. So we would have May executive, and technically you'd have June executive to iron it out. So in May's executive meeting, you could put an item, resolutions for WCA to consider, or resolution topics. If we can, have a motion to do X, Y, or Z topic, we could then bring it to the June executive meeting as a resolution, which then would go to the full board.
Because we bring it forward, the board chairs all still vote on which ones.
Yeah, so the process, yep.
Yeah, it has to go through that
Yeah, so in
level
June,
first before it gets to the full.
yeah, in June it goes to WCA. WCA then calls their annual board of directors meeting to review the resolutions. And a lot of times they'll get 6, 7, 8, 10 counties that'll do the same resolution. They'll pick the one that fits best because they're not always same verbiage, but they're the same topic. They'll narrow it down to about 50 resolutions, 55. That packet will go to every board member. You then would talk to your board chair, and then at September's annual meeting, they vote on Sunday for their the docket, what they would be lobbying for the counties for 2026.
Okay. We'll move along. Item 14, class action claim against Price County regarding in-rem property proceeds from 1/1/1989 to 4/2/2022. Nick, you want to expand on that, please?
Yeah, so we brought this up last meeting, I believe. I think we even talked about it at the board meeting. We were served, all 72 counties were served a claim against the counties. We are working with a Tollus and then our insurance company they're going to put it together, the defense. There's 5 law firms working on it for the 72 counties. They'll all work together. This will be a long drawn out process. We did have to come up with the potential liability for the county as one of the requests that the law firms are looking for. We've been working with Ritz, Christina Ritz across the street, because they did all of our in-rem process. So they have a document that shows them all. What we don't know is the cost at this time. So we still have to put in what our costs were at each property because we get to retain that. But I think our total sales in the time that we have record was what, 1
She didn't have a total.
thought it was at the bottom. I don't know. It was under $2 million, between $1 and $2 million of total sales. That doesn't include our costs. So like all the taxes that were due, all the specials, all the there. So I would estimate our liability was less than $1 million. That's if you go back all the years that they're requesting. We're one of the smaller counties in this
So
situation.
it's kind of a done deal. We're gonna pay $1 million.
No, we don't know yet. They have not clarified, or we still have to go through court.
And that's the million of sales. You have to take away the taxes that weren't paid and the cost.
Yeah, so
Off of that.
no one knows how this is going to end up, because part of our argument is, why would we go back to 1989 when the state said, here's the way you do it, all the way until the Supreme Court said, nope, you're doing it wrong.
That's what I was wondering if, so that's not a done deal yet.
No. So we're putting our new policy in place tomorrow or next Tuesday, right? On how we dispose of future properties, which we're following the new U.S. Supreme Court's ruling. So going forward, we'll have no issues. We just need to know how far back we have to be looking at, which will be
So that's a class action suit, and that came from a New York law firm, right?
through Milwaukee, but
Yeah,
yeah.
so
So,
who
we'll be
is-
doing in Milwaukee's court
Who's
system.
defending us? Is that
Atollis. Yep.
Andy Phillips?
Yeah, there's 5 law firms. Atollis is the main one that's kind of spearheading it. And then we went through our Wisconsin County Mutuals Insurance, which they hire a law firm, but to work with Atollis. And then Travelers Insurance does a lot of the other counties. They hired a law firm that'll work with Atollis. So like I said, there's about 5 law firms because Milwaukee got their own. They're self-represented, and then there's 2 counties that are self-funded.
So
So
you just mentioned now insurance companies. So if we lose and there's a judgment that we have to pay, it would be maybe the insurance company would
no,
pay?
so our
Involved if they don't have to pay.
because they'll pay the legal fees. They pay all the legal fees up till then. So the insurance company's paying the legal fees. If there's a finding, whatever, it's weird. So our insurance doesn't cover the liability of the payout. They cover the
Legal fees.
The legal
So they're
fees.
gonna pay Andy.
Yep.
Told us.
some, and again, not all. Sometimes they cover the
This sounds
payouts.
like a
It's
2
weird.
or 3 year deal.
I believe we'll go through a few election cycles before this is done. You will all be on the board, right? When this is done.
Anything else regarding this? Okay, move on. 15 monthly vouchers. Looking for a motion to approve vouchers. Polachek. And Markstrom second. Any discussion? Any questions? I don't have an issue with them per se, but I just wonder, what do we need DNA testing for 2,500 and some dollars? Do you remember?
Child support.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it goes.
And court
Okay.
systems.
That's probably something that's always on there. I just,
It's there a lot.
Mhm.
okay. Any further discussion regarding the vouchers? Not looking for a motion to approve. Well, I got the motion. All those in favor of approving the vouchers signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Any other comments? It's not on the agenda, but date of next meeting is May 15th. We're going to leave that as scheduled. And if there's nothing else, I'll adjourn this meeting.